For 55 years, a woman visited the same man almost every week. She knew his name. She knew his history. She knew what made him laugh, what frightened him, what he had eaten for breakfast. He never learned hers. She came back over and over, hundreds of times, across 5 decades. And every single time, to him, she was a complete stranger, a new face, a new voice, someone he had never seen before in his life. He was not cold. He was not rude. He was kind and patient, and by every account, a genuinely gentleman. He simply could not hold on to a new memory for more than a few minutes. Any new memory, ever, for 55 years. This is the true story of Henry Molaison, the man who gave science the most important gift in the history of memory research, and who never knew he had given it. Before we go back to the beginning, I want to ask you something. Think about this morning. When you woke up, you knew where you were. You knew what day it was. You knew what happened yesterday, what you have to do today, who the people in your life are. You did not have to piece together who you are. It was just there, instantly, without any effort at all. Now imagine waking up and none of it is there. Not because you forgot, but because the part of your brain that makes new memories was surgically removed. That is what happened to Henry Molaison. And it happened because he wanted to stop having seizures. By the end of this episode, you will understand what memory actually is, why losing it doesn't mean losing intelligence, and why the thing that happened to Henry by accident became the most important discovery in the history of brain science. If you want to find out who the woman was, the one who visited him for 55 years without him ever learning her name, subscribe now and leave a thumbs up. New story every week. This is Real Stories with Astro. Hartford, Connecticut, 1926. Henry Gustav Molaison was born into a quiet, ordinary family. He had a normal childhood, road trips with his parents, afternoons riding his bicycle, learning the names of American presidents in school. He was, by every account, a happy and unremarkable boy. When he was 7 years old, he was knocked off his bicycle. He hit his head. At the time, it seemed like nothing serious. It was not nothing. A few years after the accident, Henry began having small seizures. By his teenage years, they had grown into something severe, the kind that made his whole body convulse, that caused him to lose consciousness without warning. By the time he was in his 20s, he was having more than 10 seizures a day. He could not hold down a job. He could not go through a normal day without fear. He was 26 years old, and his life had already become impossible. In 1953, he went to see a neurosurgeon named Dr. William Beecher Scoville. Scoville had an idea. It was experimental, untested at this scale. He believed that if he removed a small seahorse-shaped structure deep inside Henry's brain, a structure called the hippocampus, the seizures would stop. He explained the procedure to Henry, he explained the risks, and Henry agreed. Here's what neither of them asked, because in 1953, nobody knew the answer. What does the hippocampus actually do? On August 25th, 1953, Henry Molaison went into the operating room. He was 27 years old. he would never be the same person again. The surgery worked. The seizures stopped, or almost stopped. They became rare, manageable. Dr. Scoville considered the operation a success. Then the doctors started to find out what had gone wrong. Henry could not remember what he had eaten for lunch. He could not remember the name of the nurse who had brought it. If someone left his room and came back 5 minutes later, he had no memory of ever meeting them. He would wake up each morning and not know what year it was. His mind kept returning to 1953, the year of the surgery, as if time had simply stopped on the operating table. When researchers asked him his age, he gave them the wrong answer. When they asked the date, he guessed years in the past. He could remember his childhood clearly. He could remember his parents, his bicycle, his road trips. He could remember facts he had learned in school. But any new memory, any experience after August 25th, 1953, disappeared within minutes. Sometimes within seconds. He went through every day as if for the first time. Think about what that means. Every meal as if you had never eaten before. Every conversation as if you had never spoken to that person. Every morning as if yesterday did not exist. Not confusion, not fogginess, complete absence. You cannot let go of something you never managed to hold on to. And who was the woman who visited him every week? In 1955, a neuropsychologist named Dr. Brenda Milner took the overnight train from Montreal to Hartford to meet Henry for the first time. She was one of the first scientists to understand that what had happened to Henry was not only a tragedy, it was a window, an accidental, irreversible, heartbreaking window into something that had never been seen before. The precise location inside the human brain where memory is made. She began to study him, and then she came back again and again, over weeks, months, years, decades. She would introduce herself each time. He would smile, shake her hand, answer her questions carefully and politely. And when she stepped out of the room and returned, he had no memory of having met her. She studied Henry Molaison for nearly 50 years. He never learned her name. Dr. Milner did not experience this as cruelty. She later said it was one of the most remarkable privileges of her scientific life, to work alongside a man who gave his time and his patience, day after day, to researchers he could never remember meeting, who never once complained about the tests, the questions, and the endless repetition. Henry was, by every account, a kind man, gentle, occasionally funny, and completely unaware of the magnitude of what he was giving away. The mirror test. Dr. Milner designed an experiment. She asked Henry to trace the outline of a five-pointed star, but without looking directly at his hand. He could only look at the reflection of his hand in a mirror. If you have never tried this, try it. Everything is reversed. Your hand wants to go one way, the mirror shows you the opposite. It takes every bit of concentration you have. Henry sat down. He looked at the mirror. He began to trace. He made mistakes. He corrected them. He tried over and over, and slowly, trial by trial, his movements became smoother, more controlled, more precise. She brought him back the next day. He looked at the mirror and the star and said he had never done this before in his life. And then he did it better than the day before. His hand remembered, his mind did not. Somewhere in Henry's brain, in the regions that Scoville had left untouched, a different kind of memory was being built. Not memory for facts or faces or names or events. Memory for skill. Memory for movement. Memory for how to do something. These two systems were completely separate. Nobody had known that until this moment. The crossword. Between test sessions at MIT, Henry would sit in the waiting room. He always had a crossword puzzle book with him. He had loved crosswords since he was a teenager. The logic of them, the particular satisfaction of finding the right word. He would work through a puzzle, fill in the answers carefully, and close the book. Then he would open it again and start over, because to him, each time, it was new. He could do the same crossword puzzle many times over, if the words were erased between sessions, and it would feel each time like the first time he had ever looked at it. The researchers noted that he never found this distressing. He did not experience it as loss. He didn't know there was anything to lose. He was living entirely in the present, every moment complete in itself. No yesterday, no tomorrow, just now. We spend most of our lives anywhere but the present, worried about what happened, planning for what might happen, carrying the weight of every memory we have ever made, forwarding to every new day. Henry had none of that weight. I am not sure whether that is a loss or something else entirely. What Henry Molaison gave science is almost impossible to measure. Before 1953, nobody understood what the hippocampus does. Nobody knew that memory, the thing we assume is a single, unified experience, is actually made of completely separate systems, stored in separate regions of the brain, operating independently of each other. After Henry, we knew, because his brain showed researchers exactly which part, when taken away, caused which specific loss. The hippocampus makes long-term declarative memories, facts, faces, events, the story of your life. The other systems, the ones that learn the star tracing without his knowledge, operate somewhere else entirely. Over Henry's lifetime, more than 100 researchers studied him. The studies he participated in were cited in over 12,000 scientific papers. He changed neurology, psychiatry, cognitive science, and our basic understanding of what it means to be a conscious person who moves through time. And he did all of this without knowing any of it was happening. Every morning he woke up as if the day before had not existed. He did not know he was the most studied human being in the history of neuroscience. He did not know that Dr. Milner had built an entire career on understanding his mind, a career that would make her one of the most important scientists of the 20th century. He did not know that the tests he found mildly interesting had already changed medicine. He just did the crossword puzzles and answered the questions and smiled at the strangers who kept coming to see him. There is a question underneath all of this that I cannot stop thinking about. If you could not make sense of your own story, if you could not piece together the narrative of your own life, would you still be you? Henry had his personality, his humor, his kindness, his intelligence, all of it intact and unchanged from the man who had walked into the operating room in 1953. The only thing taken away was the thread that connects one day to the next. I do not know what that means about who we are, but I think it is the most important question this story asks. Henry Molaison died on December 2nd, 2008. He was 82 years old. Until that day, he was known to the world only as H.M., his initials, used to protect his privacy while he was alive. Only after his death did the scientists who had worked with him reveal his real name for the first time. In his final years, he lived in a nursing home in Windsor Locks, Connecticut. The staff there understood his condition. They had learned to introduce themselves each time they entered his room, calmly, gently, and to begin each conversation as if they had just met him, which to him they always had. He never seemed distressed by this. He did not experience it as loss, because he could not remember what he had lost. There is something about that detail, that he did not suffer in the way we imagine he must have suffered, that I find both comforting and deeply unsettling at the same time. Because the loss was real, the life that could have been, the relationships that could have grown, the memories that could have accumulated, the sense of a self moving forward through time. All of it was gone. He simply did not know it. After he died, Henry's brain was donated to science. It was frozen, embedded in a block of gelatin, and cut into 2,401 slices, each one thinner than a human hair, so that researchers could study its exact structure for generations to come. The man who could not leave behind a single new memory left behind his brain, and inside it, every answer he could never give us. There is one thing I keep coming back to. Henry had no memory of giving science anything. He did not know what he had contributed. He could not hold on to that knowledge even for a day. And yet, what he left behind will be studied for centuries. So here is the question I want to leave you with. Is it possible to matter deeply and permanently without ever knowing that you did? Tell me what you think in the comments. If this story stayed with you, if there is one moment you're still thinking about right now, leave it in the comments. I want to know which one. Subscribe and leave a thumbs up if this was worth your time. Every story on this channel is real. Every word is real English, the kind fluent speakers actually use. Check the pinned comment below for all 15 expressions from this episode, with clear definitions. The next story is one of the most disturbing things I have found in the history of psychology. I will see you there.